We are live, and we are going to go hashtag Physed, hashtag Physed Summit 2016. Tweets. We are good there. Get rid of the Google Hangouts. What else? Let's go. Get rid of that double stuff. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And we have the, here we go, viewers. We have Craig. We have Carmel Health. So we will invite Andy on. You have 30 seconds to load on before I get to Nicholas Enlick over there. So we are starting. 30 seconds for Andy to come on. And then if not, we will have Nicholas come next. So I'm waiting for Carmel Health, right? Meow. So let me go make sure on the Tazzle. All right, Control C. Got my Tazzle going on so I can make sure I see what's going on there. All right, so Carmel Health. Oh, he finally subscribed. So let's try this again. Andy, you have 30 seconds starting now. Good. Andy Mill. Boom, 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 boom. Frank the Tank. Frank the Tank.
I'm in.
All right. Let's see if Nicholas is on.
If we terrible in high def.
Yeah, this is high def too. You see the difference? Look at the Jerry curl going on. So Nicholas is loading. By the way, I love his picture. That's a solid picture right there. That was, wasn't it? Solid picture. I like that. All right. And we have 13 guest viewers, which is kind of cool. And we have Adam Laveau. Let's see if Adam's going. He's got 30 seconds to join, and we will jump right into this. He is loading over here. And then we will go right into our discussion. Wow. Let's see. Yes, we are there. We got rid of that dead weight called Matt Pomeroy. Just kidding. Just kidding. We're never getting invited back to the Physed Summit. Never, ever.
Smile, guys. Smile. Smile. There you go.
I should have put the dollhouse like. Anyway, all right, so enough. They don't want to see us fooling around. They want to know what's going on. Let's start right away with our with what we have tonight, and we're talking about myths in education, not myths in physical education, but all of education. So, Andy, I'm going to let you start this off because first of all, you can think on your feet. And second of all, this is one of your big things right here. This is one of the ones, your pet peeves, one of the things that really gets you, really grinds your gears if you've ever watched Family Guy.
Wait. You're talking about learning styles?
I'm talking about learning styles.
So here's the thing.
Go.
Here's the thing. They make sense, right? They make sense. And I remember being in grad school and being told that we all have this learning, we all have a preferred learning style. And I think we filled out some kind of questionnaire as well. And I'm a PE teacher, so I kind of mind tricked myself into thinking maybe I was a kinesthetic learner. And then we had to do these assessments or assignments where we had to teach a child who was a visual learner and a kinesthetic learner and an auditory learner. It's been proven to be absolute bunk. And here's the thing, it seems to make sense. It does seem to make sense. But ultimately, the way we learn, we don't learn visually, we don't learn auditory, we don't learn kinesthetically. We learn by making meaning of what goes on around us. And although we might have a preference, there's a preference, it scientifically, it just doesn't make sense. Yes, I think as a teacher, it makes sense to vary the ways in which we teach, but don't think that you as a teacher are particularly teaching to a kid's preferred learning style because it doesn't exist. The best person I think to read up on is Willingham. And if you check out YouTube, Willingham talks very simplistically about why he thinks you think it makes sense. and why you shouldn't believe it. And the worst thing is, if you think it makes sense, you then start to make meaning out of learning experiences, and then you make that work into your own personal bias. It doesn't make sense.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, perhaps. Adam, what do you have to say about this?
Sorry. Still waking up. For me, I think about making those connections and getting kids to connect with the content that you are teaching them is massive, and making them think about the bigger picture rather than just what's the word I'm looking for? It's far too early in the morning here. Making those connections with what's happening with the real world, about what's happening within your lessons as well.
All right, Nick, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I mean, it does. Like, I sit there and think, well, I know, like, if I do X, Y, and Z, like, I seem to, be able to retain content or information or whatever is better. But is it that, or is it the fact that I've actually made meaning and connection with the content? Is that why I actually, had that experience? So it brings up a good point. And I still personally believe that we need to present material in a variety of ways, because you never know how kids are going to make meaning with that content, if that makes sense. So how they're going to interpret and make meaning with it. So I think if you provide, just a multitude of platforms or resources for kids to experience and get that content, they're going to make meaning in different ways with the content. And, again, that's just personally how I see it.
All right. I mean, for me, learning styles is this, right? We started back in the day where the teacher knew all the information, right? We didn't have the internet. We didn't have anything. We had this teacher who went to college, who was this key holder of information, right? If you didn't have the teacher, you wouldn't be able to have access to the information. Now the teacher's standing up in the front of the room. They're telling you the information that they learned. So, okay, if somebody just sits there and talks to me for an hour, I'm bored out of my mind. I get it. Learning styles make sense. However, when you start saying, okay, well, let's get the kids up moving, let's work on engagement, let's work on novelty, let's work on not being boring. I mean, now you go, okay, this is where it really starts to make sense. However, this guy, you might have heard of him. His name is Howard Gardner. I mean, he's only talked about the multiple intelligences. He's I believe a psychologist and professor of cognition and education at Harvard. So, I mean, the guy's got a credential or two. I mean, he's come up with multiple intelligences, which is what Physed cites all the time. And this is what he has to say about it. He says, sometimes people speak about a visual learner or an auditory learner. The implication is that some people learn through their eyes, others through their ears. But he says that's incoherent. Both spatial information and reading occur with the eyes, but they make use of entirely different cognitive faculties. Similarly, both music and speaking activate the ears, but again, these are entirely different cognitive faculties. Again, you can tell the dude's at Harvard because he's talking about cognitive faculties. Recognizing this fact, the concept of intelligences does not focus on how linguistic or spatial info reaches the brain via the eyes, the ears, the hands. It doesn't matter. What matters is the power of the mental computer, the intelligence that acts upon the information once picked up. For me, once you start talking, 3 minutes into it, I'm not picking up your information. You lost me. And I think that's where we confuse the different types of learner with engagement. If you just talk to me, I'm bored. I zone out. I'm looking out the window. So now if you have me move, I'm engaged. Does it mean I'm learning better because I'm moving? No, it means that I'm standing up and something's new there. So my brain's looking around going, all right, something's new. I'm going to pay attention. Andy, what do you have to say about that?
No, I was too busy reading the links on the side. There was a few people that just kind of posing some questions, and I just shared a couple of links. There is a nice YouTube clip from Willingham. He's got a lot of material out there, but in 6 minutes he kind of breaks it down, and he suggests what I was saying earlier, that it does kind of, it sounds like it makes sense, right? But it doesn't. It's like saying African Americans are faster than white athletes. It sounds like they are, but then when you look at it and you look at the science and the theory, that's not necessarily the case. So, you need to look at the data and the research. So I've just posted in the chat on the right-hand side a video clip and a recent article from The Guardian that looks at neuromyths. There's a couple of books out there that just say that there are myths in education that are holding education and learning back. And this is just one of many.
Now, do you mind if we veer off a little bit and talk about research and education?
Yeah, go ahead.
Research and education.
So this is my problem. I don't really understand research. I see research. I took an elementary statistics class. I can't read research very well. I don't understand what's going on. Hopefully the people who are doing the research, when they state their conclusion, it's all factual. Yet even John Hattie, who everyone talks about Hattie being the greatest educational research, his research has been brought into question with some of the conclusions he's come up with. And it seems like every time we turn around, there's some research that's at odds with itself. So what do we do when we have different studies that one says, hey, this exists, and then the other one says it doesn't? What do you do in those circumstances? Nick?
I agree with you as far as a lot of research goes. I mean, to be able to interpret that information is where a lot of times we where we get confused, because I could take data and interpret it in one way. You could take data and interpret it in another way, depending upon how that data is presented to us. And especially a lot of times with, the research that's out, which in education, I don't know, there's a ton of, long studies or research, that's done as much in other areas. And, a lot of times then you're, taking the interpretation of who did the study as to be, what is found. And I think
which is going to have bias automatically.
Right, exactly.
Andy, what do you do?
Why do you keep coming back to me? Ask Adam a question.
Adam, what do you do? Well, I didn't give him his 30 seconds. He's got a minute or two to think. Adam, do you look at research? Look at what happens. He's so nervous he can't even talk right now.
Told you. I'm still waking up. Yeah, of course. I'm always reading and looking at it. But I think it's, like you said, it comes back to who did it, and you have to look at what studies they're comparing it to as well.
Absolutely.
It can't just be just one person's point of view.
And we're going to get talking about that coming up, about the school in the cloud with Sugata Mitra. We'll talk about him and how that is a lot of research based on one guy citing himself. Andy?
Stop! Yeah, okay. It's like the guy who said that the MMR vaccinations were linked to autism, right? And then it was printed in the Lancet, and it was considered the gospel. And then people then kind of researched around it and realized that it wasn't the truth in it, and it did a lot of damage.
You just stole my keynote. So it's almost like Andy's been in Vegas with me, and I'm going to talk about next month. Absolutely. I mean, that guy cost billions of dollars of scientific research, money that's funneled away from what could have solved different problems, all looking into his research, and it proved out he lied. He straight up lied, and we took one scientist's word. Nick came up with that critical consumer, the whole, chef thing going on, which is brilliant. And we cannot sit there and we cannot take one person's word for things. I think that's absolutely correct on that. All right.
Yeah.
So now we talked about the learning styles. For the most part, the the studies that were cited were weak and have been disproven for the most part, and shown that really learning styles are a bunch of bunk. Let's talk about homework. Oh, this is a good one right here. So I'm going to start out with homework because this is something that I absolutely love in here. I've had my wonderful talks about homework online with some people out there. The research is pretty clear. Homework at the elementary level means nothing. There's no improvement. There's marginal improvement for the middle school, marginal. At the high school, however, it's shown that homework can greatly improve learning. I mean, that the correlation's pretty high. And I talked to Dean Dudley earlier. He said, causation doesn't always cause correlation, or I don't know, some of his fancy mumbo jumbo. But in these studies, it has been proven that when you give high school students homework, that their learning improves. So this goes to one of the other myths. Why are elementary school teachers giving homework? Nick, you're an elementary school teacher. Are you giving homework? Do you know the research? Go.
So for me, I even take research for whatever reason away from this, and I look at my own two kids that are in school. As a parent of two kids that are in school, elementary school, I have a third grader and a first grader. And overall for them, they don't have too much, but I know as they get a little bit older, when we're talking, kids sit down and they have 2 to 3 hours of homework every night. They're in school for 6 or more hours a day. And to come home and have to do 2 to 3 hours of homework on top of it, for me personally, from what I see, that what teachers actually use homework for is more the problem. So when these kids take time away from other activities that they can do, spending time with their family, being active, getting to bed on time and getting enough sleep, and they go and spend a significant amount of time working on homework to come in the next day to simply get a check mark or whatever it might be, just to be busy work or just to be a tally mark in a grade. In the grade book, that's where I have the problem with it. It's not meaningful. And then when people actually, every kid has a different home life as well. You have some kids who they don't care about homework because they might not know where they're sleeping tonight. They might not know if they're eating tonight. And then you're going to take them and then you're going to punish them when they get to school by docking points, by keeping them in at recess to complete homework. That's where I end up having the problem with homework, is we put such an emphasis on it. And we're actually just more worried about kids, more worried about them conforming and doing what they're told as opposed to what they actually get to get out of it. And that's where my big concern is. For me at home, my kids occasionally get, like a worksheet, a few problems or whatever. And, for me, that's all right. But, I just worry as they get a little bit older and, it becomes more of an obligation. And, I'm just waiting for that to come about. But I take it more from a personal standpoint, having two kids that are in school.
All right, which of the Brits want to go first? You guys can argue, so one of you could think while the other one stumbles.
I think homework might be one of those things that over time we'll see less and less of. Right now, I think it's easy for teachers to give homework because that's what we had when we were kids, and we obviously did fairly well because we went to college and we became teachers, so it worked for us. So shouldn't it work for other kids as well? If they do their homework, they could be like us, and we've been really successful in life. I don't know. I feel like the trouble with some homeworks is that it just reinforces the grade. So if you're, especially in subjects like math, if you're really good at the subject, and you get homework, well, obviously you get 100% and it reinforces your grade. So the A grade kids entrench their A grade. And if you're not particularly strong in a subject and therefore you bomb your homework, well, of course, it reinforces your grade to become weaker, and it's harder for you to dig your way out of that. I do think homework should be personalized. So perhaps even there should be a choice. I think the move ahead would be more project-based learning. That way we can work on and we can assess what is done within the school. I have spoken with some teachers on social media who aren't allowed to grade work that is not done within the school building. That's a school policy. They cannot grade work that's done at home because you don't know who's doing that work.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. We all know the parents. That project comes in, it's looking sharp. So sharp that an elementary school kid did not do that. Adam, you ready? You prepared?
Yeah, so I've just left the district and they've just brought in a no homework policy throughout the district. So I really do think that there is definitely benefits to it, but it's about changing that mindset, especially when you're thinking about bringing in a no homework policy, getting teachers to use more technology. Some of them are still maybe backing away. If a kid can do 5 problems, for example, in one subject, why are they setting them 20, 25 problems of the same thing? It's just repeating where there's not actually any learning taking place. So like what you said, that is homework necessary? And is it just putting the grade up to whatever is said? Do you know, like, is it just reinforcing the kids that can do well and the kids that can't do well and taking away from those experiences that they could be having rather than sat in? But with me now teaching in different places around the world, some parents as well, it's about educating the parents, because some parents believe that the more homework a child gets is essential to their own learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you talk about with homework, especially at the younger grades, it makes sense at the elementary and middle that the homework studies haven't shown anything because they can't teach themselves like they can at the high school level. So when you're at the high school level, you can access the resources. You could kind of learn on your own. At the elementary level, you need help of an adult. And if the adult doesn't know it, and let's face it, now with how math is taught and some of the stuff, I wouldn't even know it if I got there. If my son came home with 2nd or 3rd grade work and I'm looking at it and going, this wasn't how I was taught, I don't know. This is the answer. This is how I came up with it. It's different than them. You know, I can see why it doesn't work. And we talk about all the extracurriculars that students have out there. And then for me, the killer is when you show up to elementary school and you don't have your homework done, what happens?
You get given a 0.
Or you stay in at recess.
Yeah, right.
It's like, hold on. What? How is this? And thank God my school, I have a loud mouth. Yeah, exactly, Matt. I have a loud mouth and I went there and I said to the meeting, the research shows kids need recess, kids need movement. And my school adopted a policy. They can only be kept in when they have Physed. Is it great? No. Is it better than nothing? Absolutely. So they have Physed 2 days a week. Those 2 days, if they didn't do their homework, they can be kept in. The other 3 days, they have to go out, which for me is sort of a victory, because I went to all the meetings and I said, hey, let's talk about this. So again, we know how important recess is in and of itself, just what you learn at recess, not even the fact that we need kids to move around, that kids shouldn't be sitting. You actually learn at recess, but that's a whole other thing for a whole nother day. Are we ready for our fitness testing myth? Here it goes. Ready? Uh-oh. So hold on. Before we do that, let's look on the side over here. We have questions. We have Lisa talking about when she ran a middle school, she gave the students 45 minutes of lunch and 45 minutes of recess. Wow. That's pretty cool. Awesome. It is. I like that. And it's also funny that I actually run a summer camp in a town called West Windsor. And if you want, look this up. There were multiple the West Windsor is a high Asian population, a high Indian population, and their parents put a lot of pressure on them. There were multiple suicide attempts, multiple hospitalizations based on the amount of pressure that the parents were putting on the school system to assign homework, to give the extracurricular academics, that the superintendent had to come out and say, hey, we need to calm down a little bit and we need to readjust to what's going on. So again, if you look up West Windsor, New Jersey, education, superintendent, you'll see it come right up where the superintendent had to come out and say, hey, we got to stop all this. There's too much pressure being put on the kids. They're not ready for it. You're seeing the negative effects of it. But I digress. Let's go to fitness testing. Now, Andy's at the high school. Nick and I are at the elementary school. Adam is at the school of the basement. So he did formally go from elementary to middle and high school. So he has a lot of experience here. So first I'm going to start with Nick, then I'm going to go to Adam, then I'm going to go to Andy. So that way you can all prepare yourselves. Fitness testing. First, we know Shape America has come out and said that your SGO or SLO should not have fitness testing in it, especially with looking at the amount of time we have with our students. We are not being able to change their fitness levels. I mean, an hour a week, that's not changing a child's fitness level. If they are going up in fitness, it's either because they're doing extracurriculars or they're doing things on their own. It's really not indicative of how well a teacher teaches. However, we still have a lot of people that love their fitness testing. I do think there's a time and a place for it, but we'll say that for the end. Nick, the myth that fitness testing is objective. We could test in the beginning of the year. They do 15 sit-ups and 20 push-ups. At the end of the year, they should be able to do 22 sit-ups and 25 push-ups. What are your thoughts on that myth? Go.
All right. So a couple of things. One, with how little we see them, like you alluded to, that our impact on their ability to increase performance. If you're teaching a quality phys ed program, you're not simply sitting and working every single class all day, every day on your 1 minute push up or 1 minute sit up or whatever fitness test you use. So to believe that we have an impact that way through our classes is definitely not accurate, because if you take only, one class a month, take 1 day a month, and sit down and practice push-ups as an adult who we are, fully developed and everything else and have all the hormones needed to build muscle and all that sort of stuff, you're still not going to get stronger if you only take 1 day a month to work at it. So for me, that's I think pretty obvious that our impact is minimal. For most of us, we don't see our kids every day, and we're not working on, fitness testing skills every day. The other thing that I think becomes the interesting point is, I know a lot of times there is dollars attached to fitness testing. So I know 2 or 3 of our elementary schools continue to do fitness testing because they get, $100, $200, $300 for implementing the test in order to buy and purchase equipment. So are we utilizing fitness tests to get funding to be able to purchase equipment? And if so, is that a justification for doing it?
All right. Who do we have up next?
I'll be honest, I don't get it. I really don't get it, because we've never done it. Like, we will do it as part of a unit. So we might do it as part of a fitness unit. But ever since, even though when I was at school, we never did fitness testing as a requirement to be to go towards your grade. So when I talk to you guys and I talk to other people that teach in the States, I don't get the thinking behind just fitness testing. Like, why are we wasting time giving these kids fitness tests when we could be giving them loads of other opportunities in multiple different sports and allowing them to find that niche that they could then go and use and be active for the rest of their lives.
What about goal setting?
Well, it's completely different with, yes, part of a unit, but not for the whole year. So we would do it as part of a fitness unit where we would take part in the multi-stage fitness test, etc. But we would not do it constantly throughout the year. So we would be doing every other sport. And this is even from when I was a child. And I'm pretty sure Andy would back me up on this. Where
when they were writing on stone tablets?
No, it was chalk and slate when Andy was there. But Andy, did you do it at school?
I remember doing the bleep test.
Yeah, but the bleep test is part of a unit, but not all the time.
Yeah, no, we didn't. No, but then, like you said, I come from a different era. You know, you watch Pangrazi's 2014 PE Institute, and he takes you through the history of phys ed. Well, it's like 5 slides after my era before he gets to your era. They were still preparing soldiers for war when it was my turn to be in PE.
Well, I actually think, like, I was at a teach meet the other week and watching what this one school was doing, and they were incorporating cooperative learning within each subject that they were doing within physical education, so within each module, and looking at how the kids were taking responsibility and looking at teaching the different aspects of that sport, etc. It was really good to see how it was done, and we don't really talk about it over here. Like, yes, it's done as part of a unit, but it is not part of their grade. It's not part of their the whole curriculum, basically. But then you've got to remember that our curriculum comes from the government, whereas your curriculum goes from state to state to state, and it changes slightly with each state, etc.
True. All right, Andy.
So I teach in Illinois. We have daily PE right through to senior year. So that's one thing that's pretty cool in Illinois. Although, as I was saying on the side conversation with Adam, not all schools are in compliance with that law, and no one's actually policing it. This year, we have to fitness test and report sophomore figures to the state. We have to fitness test every year, but we haven't been told why, and we have to report the sophomore scores to the state. But again, we don't know what they're going to do with that material. So now we were sitting down and working out, how do we fit, you know, a class size of 45, and you've got to run them through a battery of 4 or 5 fitness tests. Well, that's going to take days out of your learning. So now that's having an implication on our curriculum. Fitness testing, you know what, I kind of see the validity in it if you're encouraging students to do something with that information. So say for me as a sophomore, I go through the tests and I find out that my flexibility isn't particularly good. Maybe when it comes to my electives as a junior or as a senior, I might consider taking yoga. I might do, but then I might also be one of those 1 in 5 adults who doesn't respond to training, he says, quoting Bob Pangrazi. You know, so therefore I could do multiple yoga classes and not actually see any real change. If I go to a gym, the first, you know, and I want to be a member, the first thing they do is they're going to try and get some kind of base level of level of fitness to let me know what I need to improve upon. So I'm kind of torn between the two. You cannot do a fitness test and use that to grade a child. We know that that's wrong. And in the state of Illinois, you cannot use fitness tests.
Why is it wrong?
Wait, to grade a child on the levels of fitness, because they might not have control over that. And even
what do you mean?
But even because the child won't have control over the fitness, because obviously there could be medical issues, or it could be the fact that we know that 3 months difference in age has a different, will give us different performance figures. So it's
and hormones. If you're not going through puberty, you can fitness test through the roof. Pengrazi even came out and said it. Fitness test through the roof. They could do push-ups every day the entire year and never see any improvement, because if you don't have the hormones that are going to build the muscles, you're never going to improve. And then therefore, what does fitness testing do? Puts a negative spin on it. I worked so hard all year, I saw nothing.
Genetics.
Sorry to interrupt.
I mean, your genetics play a huge part in that.
Yeah, I lost my flow there, so I'm done.
That's what Justin does. He interrupts.
That's what I do. I interrupt the flow. That's what I do. I'm like a roadblock. But I mean, for me, that right there for the elementary level. Now Andy's at the high school level, a little different. But at the elementary level, fitness testing is ridiculous. I mean, when you say, "Hey, we don't know whether you have the hormones or not," that's going to show an increase. Then how can I even sit there and tell a child, we're going to take your number in October, and then we're going to compare it to a number in May, and then we're going to go from there? It's just silly. And the kids who do really well on the fitness test, to be honest, it's not because of me. I see my kids twice a week for 45 minutes. They do well because they play competitive soccer, or they play basketball. Yeah. Or they play whatever. They're gymnasts. I have a high female gymnast population at my school. All those things, they're doing well, not because of me and not because of my class. And if they do improve, a lot of it is because they started out as a fourth grader at X amount of months. And then, they turned 9 months older at the end of the testing. So physically, they got stronger. Yeah, the pacer test is about motivation. It is about stamina. To be honest, when I first did the pacer test, my kids were going to the nurse because they thought they were dying. They had no clue that if they push themselves this hard, this is what your body feels like. One of the coolest things I heard about the pacer test, I forget who did it. I don't know whether it was Mike Graham or someone else, that their kids would just walk. When they got out, they wouldn't stop. They would just continue to walk. And then whenever they got their energy back, they could start running again. It didn't count towards anything, but it allowed them to stay involved, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, Justin, that brings up a good point, though. Like, I know talking to a lot of people that when those kids are done, those kids sit out, they sit on the side, and they sit there and they watch until the last kid by themselves. And to me, that just throws up red flags. Like, how in the world is that a quality program when you have kids sitting out watching another kid? I might as well play knockout every day. I might as well play any other elimination game, because that's what it is. Like, pacer tests, when you don't meet it and you sit out, it's an elimination game.
Good point.
Not really that fun of a game. You're just running, but it's elimination. And, like you said, though, if people take that and they're like, well, no, you continue to go, you keep participating, definitely a bit different. But I don't think that's how most people do it. They follow, you stop, you get out, you sit over. And again, huge problem with that. Because what are we actually teaching them? Like, what skills are you actually teaching? I can teach my kids about muscular endurance, cardiovascular endurance, without ever doing a fitness test. So what are we actually teaching? What skills are we? Well,
we're teaching goal setting.
I can do that without it.
I'm just saying, you did your test. Now your goal is 10% higher, 20% higher. You're teaching your goal setting. You're teaching for them how to base themselves, how to do, a test where they're going to do their base and then try to work up. So as you get older, when you start entering a gym or whatever, what do? They sit there and they go, okay, how much can you lift? How much can you do? Whatever. You increase. So there are some decent things about it. Yeah. It just, for me, there's so many negatives attached to it. It's hard to do.
So as I think about, if our goal is to develop physically literate students by the time they graduate high school, if I'm a physically literate student when I graduate high school, should I need a personal trainer when I go to a gym? If I'm physically literate, should I know how to move and how to be active on my own? Or should I because I see this is something I'm tossing around my head. Like, I think if I'm physically literate when I graduate high school, I should not need a personal trainer, because I should have been taught fit principle. I should have been taught, fitness. I should have been taught that stuff. Now, I'm not saying that, everybody's going to get it, but
that's what Alex O'Brien says. Alex O'Brien says that's our job, So when kids leave, they are their own fitness instructor. They are their own dietitian. They have those skills. You don't agree?
No. I don't know. That's an awful huge jump to say. All right, we have to know how to be able to lift weights properly, how to diet, how to exercise. Our job.
That's Illinois. That's Illinois State Standard 20.
Yeah, well, Illinois State Standard 20 ain't USA State Standard 20.
I'm just saying.
Global. I don't know. That's a hard leap. That I played sports my whole life. I lifted, I exercised, I loved it. When I left high school, I still need a little help from a professional who's going to say, all right, here's your core strength. This is, somebody who's going to lead me a little bit. I don't know. Is
that a motivation thing or a knowledge thing?
It's a little of both. I don't know.
Well,
it depends.
You think about the savvy students who think, okay, well, I only need to get this in this. Like, for example, basic test, I only need to get a level 6. But when my grade comes around, I need to push myself so that I can show improvement. So I'm going to push myself to get level 6.5 or 7. Oh, guess what? There's your improvement every time. And some teachers will play the system just so that they can get there to show that improvement with their SLOs, etc.
Just like kids are going to dog it the first part because they know, all right, in October, if I get low and then I score high in May, my final grade is going to be good. So what's the motivation to try? All right. So we have Adam Howell telling us we got to wrap it up out here. Any lasting thoughts? We only got to a couple educational myths. We could do this all night, but let's do a couple wrap-ups of what this BlabberMouths. Now we're on Fire Talk, but we're still under the BlabberMouths thing going on. What does it mean to you, or what can we bring to the phys ed and health world by having 4 people sit here and talk, and then especially more than us talk, have the interaction on the side? So we'll go by a show of hands. Does anyone want to go first? Adam, you were up first. That was like a low-tech Kahoot right there. So.
It's funny because me and William Bodie were speaking earlier today, and we were saying that we missed these sort of roundtable discussions about different points, about what's happening and what's happening around the world, what's happening in people's classrooms. So by having this conversation that we have and maybe getting people to come in is a really good opportunity for other people to listen in and find out what our thoughts are, but also get some feedback from the side as well. So I do enjoy these conversations, even though I do get ribbed for being a little bit slow at 5 in the morning.
Yeah, well, I'll know that in another 5 hours when I wake up to do Nick's student choice and voice. Andy Milne, what do you have to say?
It's funny because we sit and we talk and we feel like we're just hanging out with friends, but I feel like we always get positive feedback from people who take away some of the things that we say and they agree with it. It gives them things to think about and discuss that week. So, yeah. I enjoy it, and I would happily keep on doing it until someone tells me I'm really boring.
You're boring.
Nick? Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other great thing, too, is that we have a mutual respect for each other and thoughts and views, and we don't always agree, but we're open-minded. We're willing to listen and hear each other's thoughts, and I know for me personally, you 3 push my thinking on a regular basis, and that's just going to make me a better teacher and person.
Nice. Well, one thing I do have to say is all the people on the side, look at the 4 people on the screen right now. So middle-aged white dude, middle-aged white dude, middle-aged white dude, middle-aged white dude. We need some color up in here. We need some different genders. I'm willing to kick Andy out if anyone better comes along, and by anyone better, I mean anyone
at all.
Period. Yeah, anyone at all.
Anyone younger.
Yes. I mean, for real, we need more voices. And again, it's cool. Believe me, I love these dudes. It's really cool talking. But if anyone else ever wants to come on, and Ed Miller, you could come on as well. We are more than willing to take a back seat and have other people come on and talk, because we do want multiple perspectives. We do want to have our thinking pushed. So anyway, to finish up, the same thing I say at the end of every video chat that we ever do. Thank you for watching us. Time is our most precious commodity, and the fact that you spent a minute with us is absolutely fantastic. And we would love to thank the Physed team. You guys put all this together, and girls, and no, not girls, and ladies, guys and ladies, for putting all this together for free and staying up all night. And it's really cool stuff. So again, I would like to give you one of these. Thank you to the Physed team. And that is it. Any last thoughts, anyone?
We're done.
Catch Nick and I, 6 o'clock a.m., people.
Yeah,
Peace.
5 hours from now.